The summer of 2022 was supposed to be ordinary. I was 21, juggling night classes and a part-time job at a local diner. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The night shifts were long, and the customers ranged from lonely regulars to the occasional rowdy group fresh from a night out. But on one particular evening, something happened that I still can't explain, and I'm not sure I'll ever forget it. It started like any other Thursday. The diner was located off a quiet highway, surrounded by nothing but dense woods and the occasional gas station. By 10 p.m., the place had mostly cleared out, leaving just me, my coworker Lisa, and a lone trucker nursing his coffee in the corner booth. The hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint sound of a classic rock station on the radio filled the silence. "Another slow night," Lisa said, leaning against the counter. She was scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. I nodded, wiping down the already spotless tables to pass the time. At 10:30, the trucker paid his bill and left, leaving the diner empty, except for us. I locked the door behind him, flipping the sign to "closed." But we still had half an hour to kill before officially clocking out. Lisa suggested we start on our closing tasks early. I headed to the back to restock supplies while she handled the register. The first odd thing happened just as I was finishing up in the supply closet. The lights flickered. Not unusual in an old building like this, but it was enough to give me pause. I stepped back into the main dining area, where Lisa was standing by the counter, staring out the window. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice low. "See what?" I replied, walking over. She pointed to the parking lot. At first, I didn't see anything, just the faint reflection of the neon "open" sign against the glass. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. A shadowy figure was standing at the edge of the lot, just beyond the reach of the streetlights. "Maybe it's someone from the gas station next door?" I suggested, though my voice lacked conviction. Lisa shook her head. "They've been there for at least 5 minutes, just standing there." We both watched in silence, the figure's presence unnerving. They didn't move closer, didn't wave or shout, just stood there, their features obscured by the darkness. "Should we call someone?" Lisa asked. "Like who? They're not doing anything." Lisa frowned but didn't argue. We tried to ignore it, returning to our tasks, but the uneasy feeling lingered. I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. By 11 p.m., we were ready to leave. Lisa grabbed her bag and waited by the door while I turned off the lights. When I joined her, the figure was gone. "See?" I said, trying to sound relieved. "Probably just someone passing through." Lisa didn't look convinced, but she nodded, and we stepped outside. The night air was cool, and the parking lot was silent except for the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. As we walked to our cars, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. I was halfway to my car when I heard Lisa gasp. I turned to see her frozen in place, staring at something behind me. Slowly, I turned around. The figure was back, standing at the far end of the lot. This time, they were closer, just barely illuminated by the dim light of the diner's sign. My heart pounded in my chest as I took in their appearance. They were tall, dressed in all black, with a hood obscuring their face. Their posture was unnervingly still, like a statue. "Get in the car," I said, my voice shaking. Lisa didn't move. Her eyes were wide and her breathing was shallow. "They're pointing at us," she whispered. I looked again. Sure enough, the figure had raised a hand, their index finger extended in our direction. A chill ran down my spine. It felt like a warning, or worse, a threat. "Lisa, get in the car," I repeated, louder this time. That snapped her out of it. She bolted for her car, fumbling with her keys as she unlocked the door and climbed inside. I did the same, my hands trembling as I started the engine. As I backed out of the lot, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The figure was still there, watching us leave. I followed Lisa out onto the highway, my knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel. We didn't stop until we reached a well-lit gas station several miles away. Once there, we parked side by side and rolled down our windows. "What the hell was that?" Lisa asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm not going back to check." We sat there for a while, trying to process what had happened. Eventually, Lisa suggested we call the police, but I hesitated. What could we even say? That someone stood in our parking lot and pointed at us? It wasn't exactly a crime. In the end, we decided to go home. Lisa offered to let me stay at her place, but I declined, figuring I'd feel safer in my own space. Looking back, I wish I had taken her up on the offer. When I got home, the house was dark and quiet. I locked the door behind me and double-checked the windows, my paranoia in overdrive. Every creak and shadow seemed sinister. I finally crawled into bed around 1 a.m., exhausted but too wired to sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to a strange sound. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, but as I sat up, I realized it was real. A faint tapping noise coming from the window. My heart raced as I turned to look. At first, all I saw was my own reflection in the glass. But then, just beyond it, a shadow moved. The figure was there, standing outside my bedroom window, their hooded face inches from the glass. I froze, my mind racing. How had they found me? What did they want? My phone was on the nightstand, but I was too scared to move. The tapping continued, slow and deliberate, like they were trying to get my attention. Finally, I mustered the courage to grab my phone. My hands were shaking so badly that it took me 3 tries to dial 911. The operator's voice was a lifeline, and I whispered urgently into the phone, explaining the situation. "Stay on the line," she said. "Officers are on their way." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. The tapping stopped, and when I looked back at the window, the figure was gone. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. They searched the yard and surrounding area but found no sign of the intruder. They took my statement and promised to patrol the neighborhood for the rest of the night. I didn't sleep at all. Every sound, every shadow, felt like a threat. The next morning, I called Lisa and told her what had happened. She was horrified and insisted I stay with her for a few days. I agreed, packing a bag and leaving my house behind. For the next week, I stayed with Lisa, jumping at every little noise and constantly looking over my shoulder. The figure didn't appear again, but the fear lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still out there, watching, waiting. Even now, months later, I'm still haunted by that night. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of town, but the paranoia never left. Every time I'm alone at night, I can't help but glance at the windows, half expecting to see that hooded figure staring back at me. And the worst part? I still don't know who they were or what they wanted. All I know is that I'll never feel truly safe again